One of the most common questions I get asked is, how do you know you're going to have a seizure? Hi, my name is Martin. I have an extreme form of epilepsy where I experience one seizure a week, mostly at night while sleeping. And I'm here to share my story. For several hours before a seizure, I can actually know that I'm going to have a seizure that night. And people are quite surprised by that. But the reason I know that is because there is a chemical that the brain releases called serotonin. And what that does is makes the individual feel really anxious. They want to get things done right now. And they can also be very critical of themselves. So through my studies of psychology, I look at myself and I think, hang on, I'm starting to act in this way. I'm most likely going to have a seizure tonight. And it does normally happen like that for me. But if the seizure happens during the daytime, I will feel the onset being a simple focal seizure. People call it an aura. And for me, it's an unusual feeling of imbalancement, where I just suddenly feel, whoa, I'm feeling dizzy. It's like you've been on a roller coaster and just suddenly gone up and down on the roller coaster. It's like, whoa. And I think I've only got about 10 seconds to sit on the ground before it goes on to a complex focal seizure, where I lose consciousness and start convulsing. Now that goes for around 1 minute. But what a lot of people don't realize is that the person then goes into what's called a Peri-Ictal period, which can be up to an hour after the seizure. And during that period, the person can be spoken to and they will look at a person who's speaking to them. But you honestly will be very lucky to get one word out of the person at the time. If they have a bag with them, they'll hold it like a child holds their toy. They want to protect it because they've really got no idea what's happening. And later, they will have no memory of this. So for me, that period used to be up to an hour in length before I was introduced to the cannabinoid oil, which is the form of cannabis that they've turned into medicine now. And it's reduced my seizure right down. It's been very beneficial for me. In the pre-ictal period, or when you're leading into the seizure starts when you start having an aura for people who have focal seizures. Now, because mine's on the left side of the brain, it'll be a feeling of either an unusual smell or a feeling of uncomfortability, like I've just got off a roller coaster and feeling like I'm all over the place. For people who have right temporal lobe damage, it'll often be a feeling of déjà vu, a feeling like, I've been here before, this is really weird. And that's actually telling them that the seizure has started, and it could progress into a convulsive seizure. So while having the seizure, the brain releases a neurochemical called GABA. And what that actually does is stops cells from sending messages from one to the other. And that actually allows the brain to control the irregular activity causing the seizure. Now what it also does is triggers another neurotransmitter called dopamine to be released. Now, dopamine is normally released when an athlete's running a marathon. And what it does is stops them from being able to recognize the pain while they're running. It allows them to stay focused. And so they get to the end of the race and they think, wow, doesn't that feel good? And then they think they've achieved a goal. And the next day they realize how painful they are. And that's similar to a seizure. When you've had a seizure, so much of it's released. It's so much more than when someone's running a marathon, because it's just trying to stop everything and calm it down, that the side effect of that level of dopamine is depression. And so when people often experience high depression, they're needing to deal with their dopamine levels in their brain. So recently I had a seizure at the domestic airport where I cut my chin and ended up having to have 8 stitches in it. And at the time when I regained the consciousness and found 2 people sitting in front of me, one of them saying, oh, we've changed your flight to tomorrow. And the other one saying, you have to actually go to a hospital and we're just waiting for an ambulance to turn up. I had no idea I'd hurt myself because of the dopamine. The ambulance turned up. They said to me, we think you definitely need to have stitches, but you don't have to come with us if you don't want to. When you say that to someone who's had a seizure, they might think that means you're not really in a bad way. But I knew that I just had to trust them and go with them to the hospital. And so I went there, had the stitches placed in, and the next day return to the airport to catch the plane, because high levels of dopamine cause depression. For me, because I've learnt that, what I realise I need to do is just mostly relax and not be critical of myself. Just say to myself, I'm not really depressed, it's just a side effect of this dopamine that's been released that's causing me to feel that way. And that's how I cope with the condition. If I've experienced a seizure during the night time, the next day, depending on how tired I am, because it can depend on how big the seizure was, I will maybe spend that day at home, just working on the computer, doing small things, but not pushing myself too hard, because it's important to let your body recover after a big seizure. And it's usually the day after that I return to my routine of going for a walk for up to 3 hours in the morning, because I find that's very important for me, having a right hemisphere dominant brain, being artistic, to go for a walk around Sydney Harbour and just see the beautiful views. It makes me feel very relaxed. I'm listening to music while I'm walking, and I've got no idea that 3 hours have just passed.